Hey, good morning. I've forgotten how to do a lot of this stuff, and I'm in a new place with some gear I haven't worked with in a long time, but I decided it needed to happen today, so we're doing it. This is my home office. Welcome. It is not organized yet, but you'll see a keyboard back here that my kids are practicing on, and you see some floating bookshelves that I've hung up, and some bookshelves that came with the parsonage. Um, yeah, it's good to see everybody. Y'all were good to sign on before I got my chat up and going. I forgot how to do that particular point. So if you've already signed in, would you go ahead and do it again so that I can highlight your well, let's make sure I can even highlight the way it needs to be done. Let's see. Tim Smith is with us on local. Yes, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got my camera in a different place than I'm used to. Scott Rafferty from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. I'm very glad to be gathered again. Alice Cobb, one of my new friends in Yazoo City. Very good to see you, sister. Let's see who else signed in before I got everything up and going. Looks like Eileen. Oh, so good to see you, Eileen. I've missed you. Jared Neal and Ben, God bless you, brothers, for joining. Kim Bellotti from Erie, Pennsylvania. Ben, I'm glad I'm back on too. Oh, Pat's with us. Hey, and Jen. All right. Yeah, y'all keep it moving in the chat. Make sure I'm staying on top of things. Good morning. Let's see. Lon Scott has also signed in from New Braunfels. Good to see you, friend. And D Jenkins. Oh man, got the old crew back together. Man, it's been a journey. It's let's see, I looked briefly at the last live stream that I did. Oh man, it was a while ago. That was right at the beginning of Advent, and of course we've gone all through Advent and Christmas and the first couple of months of 2026, and now we're gearing up and getting ready for Lent this week. This Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, so if you're not a liturgical person, you don't care. But for many of us, we're gearing up for Ash Wednesday and then for taking on spiritual disciplines aimed at self-denial, which of course we should be doing throughout the Christian year, except for maybe Christmas and Easter. But I gave a good, solid invitation in worship yesterday to observe Lent, and I meant it. And I hope you have plans for that. I'm doing a couple new things. I wanted to start off by asking things of you. One of them is I think I'm live streaming on Substack, but if anybody ends up watching on Substack today, I want to get your thoughts on how it looks and sounds, and if there's anything about the live stream I need to do differently. Also, I checked in on Locals. Locals, there are two places where you can support my work. Substack is one of them, and I actually have two Substack channels. And then Locals is the other one where there's just kind of a private community. And if you're doing just one, don't worry about doing the other. But if you're not supporting my work yet and you agree that it's good work to support, would you go over to plainspoken.locals.com? Let's see, I think I've got a little graphic here. Yep, plainspoken.locals.com. And in order for me to live stream on there, I have to have 50 supporters or more. I had at the high water mark like 65, but I haven't been doing this for a couple of months and I'm down to 50. So if I lose another one, I cannot live stream on Locals anymore. It won't be the end of the world, but it'll be sad, for that community that's got behind me there. So anyway, if you want access to, I try and post every single thing I do on Locals. I do a terrible job, but I will do better. What else did I want to ask you guys to do right off the bat? I don't like asking people to do things, but it is important to get support. I can't do all this on my own. I've been asking around if you know of anybody who can edit video. I don't have time to be editing a bunch of video. I need someone that can do it for church production, my church, and then also for PlainSpoken. That would be really good. So I will pay money. But if you know somebody who enjoys working with video, please connect them with me. You can, if you want to, email my contact information, plainspokenpod@gmail.com. You can always reach me that way. Want to greet those of you who are continuing to sign on. Got Brother Sherman with us. Good morning. Good morning. Janice Alcorn. Good to see you, sister. Lawrence Meduse. Consoling. Oh, okay. Well, if that's, yeah, somebody talk to him. Make sure he's real and see if you can bless him. Jen reminds you of your civic obligation to like the worthy content online, and hopefully this is it. If you haven't seen a lot of my work before, this morning live stream that I do is kind of a time of prayer, praying over the world. We're going to pray in just a minute. We've been praying out of this book for some time. It's a time of reading the news and making sure that our worldview corresponds with reality. I regularly look at stuff in the news, but not stuff that you're going to see in the news. And it's not like I have like a beeline on that stuff, but I just find stuff online that I think is helpful for us making informed decisions, especially as Christians, but also as fathers and mothers, parents. I talk about stuff pertaining to marriage. I talk about stuff just involving like having an educated populace. I just think it's good. I'm a global Methodist elder. I think that we need church bodies that equip us to function well in the world, and I'm very hopeful about the Global Methodist Church. Oh, I forgot to show my new plain spoken name. You'll see at the bottom it now says Mississippi West Texas, not West Texas, Mississippi West Tennessee Annual Conference. That's my new conference, and they've welcomed me warmly here, and I very much have enjoyed becoming a Mississippian. Nothing against Oklahoma, but the Magnolia State sure is beautiful, and we've been through an ice storm. Oh boy, was that stressful. Uh, we lost power for 5 days, and my kids were going nuts. And there were, man, that morning branches breaking and falling everywhere, power lines down everywhere. There's still branches all over this town. It looks like a disaster area, although it's looking a little better every day. But man, we've really been through it. I want to thank those of you who've been praying for me. Uh, I cut off revenue streams in on Substack because I knew I wasn't going to be producing much for a couple of months. Although I did still produce a couple of articles. Make sure you check those out. And I interviewed Ken Ham and Samuel Say, and that was a good. I felt good about both of those, I think. So if you haven't seen those, Ken Ham is the Ark Encounter guy who pushes back against the modern scientific materialist worldview. Man, just I love doing these interviews. I want to remind you, these interviews that I do, they're set up by other people. I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So if there's somebody you want me to talk to, plainspokenpod@gmail.com. That's the email address to correspond with me and set these things up. But anyway, y'all been great to pray for me. Made it through many, many trials. Every day has been really pretty action packed, bringing order to this chaos. Wonderful folks here, but there's a lot of work to be done. And so I'm really glad to do it. Really glad to have people supporting me as I kind of have to step away for a bit. A number of you sent me messages saying, "Hey, man, keep my money coming to you. I want to support you." So because of you, I'm able to buy some decent gear and get a studio up and running at the church. So don't know how quickly that's coming along, but all my gear is over there. Just has to be put together. I've been talking, and I'll if you have questions for me about life here, you want updates on any particular things, you want to ask about anything, you're very welcome to. I'm an open book, but we should pray. This is in the Valley of Vision, uh, collection of Puritan prayers and devotions. This one is on page 59, kept by God. I would invite you to be in a spirit of prayer with me. Jehovah God, thou creator, upholder, proprietor of all things, I cannot escape from thy presence or control, nor do I desire to do so. My privilege is to be under the agency of omnipotence, righteousness, wisdom, patience, mercy, grace. Thou art love with more than parental affection. I admire thy heart, adore thy wisdom, stand in awe of thy power, abase myself before thy purity. It is the discovery of thy goodness alone that can banish my fear, allure me into thy presence, help me to bewail and confess my sins. When I review my past guilt and am conscious of my present unworthiness, I tremble to come to thee, I whose foundation is in the dust, I who have condemned thy goodness, defied thy power, trampled upon thy love, rendered myself worthy of eternal death. But my recovery cannot spring from any cause in me. I can destroy, but cannot save myself. Yet thou hast laid help on one that is mighty, for there is mercy with thee, and exceeding riches in thy kindness through Jesus. May I always feel my need of him. Let thy restored joy be my strength. May it keep me from lusting after the world, bear up heart and mind in loss of comforts, enliven me in the valley of death, work in me the image of the heavenly, and give me to enjoy the first fruits of spirituality, such as angels and departed saints know. Amen. I don't think I've ever done that one. That was a good one. It was an okay one. Man, Wesley Don and David, Wesley Don, and yes, David. Um, man, I hope it's a good time. Just an FYI, I've been thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Jeff Harrison, what's up, brother? Yeah, Samuel Say is great. I appreciated that. A Kid Rock, Robert Ritchie. Man, I wonder. That would be nuts. I'd need to do some homework. It's been a while since I paid attention to Kid Rock. And I know he did the All American halftime show or whatever. I just, it feels like a part of my life in high school. So it's just weird to continue caring about that. But he's still around, isn't he? Dreama. Hey, sister. Good morning. Good to see you back on PlainSpoken, watching from slightly warmer West Virginia. Yeah, the weather's been weird. Yeah, thank you, Elaine. God bless you. Thank you. Yes, I'm glad to be back. I'm trying to think of anything else that y'all should know. Of course, a lot of what I'm concerned about is the Global Methodist Church. We're having our general conference this year. I have legislation that I think is going before Lamar. What is his last name? He was in charge of overseeing all this legislation. He sent me email that I have not yet read. So it could be that my legislation has now dropped. I don't know when's the deadline. When's the deadline for Global Methodist registration? If I need to get on that. So if anybody wants to partner with me on legislation for General Conference, if it's not too late, send me an email. My agenda is, to the best of my ability, advocating the restoration of the doctrine, spirit, and discipline with which we first set out. That, of course, is from a quote from John Wesley, the original kind of autocratic leader of Methodism. The quote is, which I always butcher, I do not fear that there should cease to be I already butchered it. I do not fear that there should be a day in the future when there should cease to be a people called Methodist. I fear only that we continue forward with the name, but only as a dead sect, uh, uh, carrying forward neither the power. I've lost it. And that will surely come to pass unless we maintain both the doctrine and the spirit and the discipline with which we first set out. So, Methodism, once upon a time, was a movement with which the Lord was pleased to act powerfully, and I would love to see such days again. I know I'm supposed to say that we're already seeing it in the Global Methodist Church. I'm not sure we are yet. I would like to think that if we faithfully position ourselves, that we will see not just the indwelling power of the Holy Spirit, but an explosion of a new Pentecost. I would love to see that again. So that's my agenda, as I advocate for my three primary virtues: transparency, accountability, vulnerability. I don't think that denominations are called to reflect worldly institutions, but are actually supposed to exemplify biblical virtue and be kingdom outposts. I think that's how we need to interact together. And I think Methodists are positioned better than any other denomination to do that. But man, have we had some setbacks. So that's what I'm about. So if you, even if you're not a Global Methodist, I want you on board for the ride, because I'm regularly trying to offer a counterpoint to a lot of worldly extremes. The people that I identify most with as I look at people in the online world are Robert Gagnon. Man, that guy is solid. Megan Basham, John Harris. These guys, pretty much everything they post, I think is worthy. Of course, Megan Basham suffering with cancer right now. And there are wonderful other people in the world right now. The unique perspective I offer is just kind of a synthesis between political ideology, biblical theology, Methodist worldview, some economics, some I don't know, neuroscience, social science. Not too serious, but I think all of these things, truth is one. And so as we are learning about different things that are real in the world, they all conform to one reality. So I'm going to look at comments, and then we'll look through a couple of things that I just think are important for people to know about the world we're living in. Very glad to see my brother James. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get this thing back up and running, and we'll spend time on worthy topics that are edifying for the body. Good morning from Milford, Ohio. I'm glad to be up and going. Yeah, y'all comment, like, and share this. You want to see good content, you have to promote it. It's just the deal. This is, I believe in the marketplace of ideas, and I think these are worthy ideas we talk about. All right, so let's see how we do on this first one. All right, let me make sure y'all can hear me, because the audio is always, it looks like the audio is coming through. Okay, I might have gotten a little bit quieter, but I don't think there's anything to be done. Anyway, this is a post from X, and I don't know. Here, we'll read the words and then watch the report, and if it's gross, then we'll turn it off. I thought it was kind of emotional whenever I was listening to it. But shocking new MRI study on 3 to 5-year-olds, just 2 hours of interactive screen time per day is linked to measurable loss of white matter in the brain. Professor Mike Nagel from the University of Sunshine Coast, quote, "White matter is myelin. It insulates axons like plastic on a wire. Deficits in myelin early in life mean deficits in neural connectivity. The more screen time, the greater white matter loss, especially in areas tied to language development and literacy." Nagel's first reaction as a researcher and a father: wow, I was not anticipating seeing anything like that. It hadn't occurred to me that something as little as 2 hours a day, was having such a profound effect. Parents, has this changed how you think about screen time limits for young kids? All right, so this is a 1.5-minute report from an Australian voice. It's a little emotional. Y'all know I don't like the emotional language in music, but it is a scary topic. It's something that we need to know about if it's true. So let's look at the presentation.
Can you see the screen all right? Yeah.
This is 5-year-old Rose. She was one of 60 kids to undergo an exhaustive study in the US, using an MRI machine to scan the brains of kids aged 3 to 5 years old. The results, truly shocking. Interactive screen time causes a loss of white matter in the brain.
Well, in the simplest terms, we could actually refer to some measure of brain impairment or brain damage.
Professor Mike Nagel from the University of the Sunshine Coast has spent a career studying child brain development.
So white matter in the brain is a material called myelin. So what myelin does is it wraps around the axons of neurons and acts like an insulator, a conductor, not too dissimilar to the plastic coating of a wire. So if we're seeing deficits in myelin production early in life, we're probably seeing deficits in neural connectivity.
The study shows the more screen time a child is exposed to, the greater the loss of white matter. Can you remember your first reaction to those results, not only as a professional in this field, but as a father?
My gut reaction was, wow, I was not anticipating seeing anything like that.
All right, it looks like that's pretty much the same thing as the text. I kind of thought maybe there'd be more information. It was just kind of graphics. So, yeah, the one of the things that I'm regularly talking about is just my concern for the kind of people we're creating through the modern uh, lifestyle changes that we have. You know, the world has never been a perfect place. There have always been mass formation psychosis and toxins leaking into our children's water supply. In many ways, we're living in the best time there's ever been when you look at longevity and um, uh, just technological advancements in medicine and information access. But there are a lot of ways in which we are uniquely harming ourselves and our children that previous ages haven't seen. And so, despite the material advances that we've had, I think it's incumbent upon us to reckon with the fact that not all technological advance is good, and there are ways in which interventions can really set us back, and there are ways in which, man, I'll tell you, a screen makes parenting a lot easier when your kids are screaming and needy. It's easy to just turn on. I think they used to call it the boob tube, and I don't know why they called it that, but it's easy. I mean, they just zonk out, and then they don't require anything of you. And I wouldn't lie and tell you that my wife and I have never done that. We have 5 kids. We have a sixth on the way. There are days when we are on our last nerve and they're requiring a lot of us, and we turn the TV on. But if you have kids that are looking at TV more than 2 hours a day, there seems to be a cost with that, with brain development. There are a lot of ways in which we want to look at humans as like machines. So there was this guy, Jeffrey Canada, who had this innovative approach to childhood education in New York City. And what it was based upon was the theory that children do well to hear more words every day. And so parents had to read books to their kids. And what do you know? It was a very successful program. So a lot of people said, well, if it's just about words, I'm just going to have the radio on all the time. I'm going to have a TV on all the time. And the parents who kept reading to their kids, the kids kept doing well, but the ones that were just exposed to words constantly did not do any better. And so they realized what was at play here was not the number of words they heard, but the amount of social exchange they had with other people that react to them. The thing is, a screen doesn't interact with you the way that a human being does. There's all kinds of not just facial expressions, but intonations, and even I'm one of these that thinks that olfactory and tactile senses have a lot more to do with our health than other people. I don't think a screen, even if you created a program that could perfectly mimic vocal intonations and facial expressions, I don't think that we would develop rightly because you have to be able to touch the people. You have to be able to smell the people. You know, this is how we were made by God to interact with the world. So the children haven't been all right for some time. We've known this. Not that all children have ever been perfect, but they have not been developing well. And I think this is relevant in the church whenever we're trying to make the church a place of healthy development. It drives me nuts whenever there's a daycare that you bring your kids to, and what do you know? They've got the screen on. You know, they got all this room full of toys. They could be playing outside, but oh, you can't go outside because it's 50 degrees and it's cold out there. And instead, they've just got on some mindless uh thing for the kids to watch, or even like Veggie Tales. Like, still, turn it off. Phil Vischer has been seen to be like a not a great guy. He was the creator of VeggieTales. And, I'm sure some of the episodes have worthy reflections, but you know what's better than that? Real life. And you're at this church and you have all these people around that could be ministering to the kids, and instead you got a TV screen on. I think that's such a waste. Um, and it's one thing if you're having an emergency or you're just having especially bad day, you need to turn on the TV for a minute. Make sure they're exposed to something that isn't depraving them. And that is another thing that we've got in the show notes that we can see, Netflix and other bodies trying to sow in seeds of anti-Christian propaganda. But even here's the thing I'm building up to saying is the TV should not be a daily thing in your children's lives. Um, this is just something that everybody's gone along with. I don't think it's good for us. And here's the other thing. I don't think children are the only ones who are mentally compromised from TV. And I've said things along these lines before. One of the things that rocked me when I learned it is when y'all remember when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, uh, people who watched it on TV were more traumatized than people who were actually there. Isn't that quite a thing? TVs have a way of manufacturing a false reality for us. And so it's distressing to me whenever I do pastoral visits and I come to people multiple times, and every time I come by, they've just got network news on. Network news is programmed to keep your anxiety up, to keep you buying from their advertisers. It keeps you in this lemming-like state where you're just so taxed emotionally and mentally. There's so many stories to keep track of. There's so many voices and personalities to keep track of that you just can't stay abreast of it. So what we're dealing with in children, they only did this study on children. I'd be interested in white brain matter on adults that are spending significant time on screens per day. What I think we're noticing, I've seen this in light of vaccine, the COVID vax, post-COVID vax, there seems to be a cognitive decline among those who've gotten it. I don't have the citation on that, so take that with a grain of salt. But we've been noting for a long time that adults are lacking critical thinking faculties, and so TV may or may not be a part of that. Looking at screens all the time almost certainly is. One of the interesting things I've noticed about here in Yazoo City, we have children and youth in my church, and where I was in northeastern Oklahoma, children and youth were in bad shape. Lovely people made in God's image, but very few could look me in the eye. Very few could respond to me when I talked to them. And it wasn't an intimidation thing. It was smartphone screen exposure seems to have an impact on young people's social development such that they don't know how to interact like normal people. And here in Mississippi, or at least the Delta region that I'm in, children still respond and with manners. It's very strange. There are very few parts of the country where children are raised this way anymore, and I like it. But the thing is, we've known for a while that screens have a measurable impact on young people, especially young ladies. Jonathan Haidt has done a lot to show that Snapchat, no, not Snapchat, Instagram, and probably Snapchat, but especially Instagram, Facebook, have had a huge impact, negative, on young women's mental health and mental development. But we've kind of wanted to make it only about content. What is it that they're looking at? Maybe we can give them a playlist of good things to watch. Maybe we can fill them, with, Tuttle Twins and all this, or PlainSpoken, right? But there's some, yeah, I'm not a big children's programming, am I? But the larger thing here is saying it doesn't matter what you're consuming on a screen. If you're in front of a screen, it doesn't impact your brain well. And we've also known this for a while with respect to just reading memory retention. When you're reading, if you're reading off paper versus reading off of a screen, you do not retain things from a screen the way you do from paper. There's something psychologically that takes over when you're looking at a screen. I say this as one who looks at screens all day long, but it's not good for you. And I remember what my brain used to be sharper. I remember earlier stages of life where I wasn't looking at screens all the time and my brain was sharper. And I wonder if I've had a decline in myelin and that connective brain tissue. So I, and then the conspiratorial part of me is saying we've had screens since the 1950s, really. We have had a government that experiments and tests all things. I don't think this is really a new revelation to many that screens have this kind of impact. I think it's been known but hidden, and now this is just one of many things that can no longer be hidden. And the the thing in front of us, I think, is okay, we know the truth, you know, but are we going to change anything? We're so addicted to this way of life that even if it is negative, if it has a bad health impact, are we really going to change anything? And I think a lot of people are at the place where they're just, no, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. It's just part of my life. I think I saw that the average person between the age of 11 and 18 spends 8 hours a day looking at their phone. I'm not good holding on to specific numbers, but whenever your entire life is centered around screens, you could tell them that it affects brain development. But if that's the only life they know, they're too far in now. They can't go back. Same with processed food. How many people their diet entirely consists of processed food that's poisoning and killing them? Same thing with tattoos. We're learning more and more about how unhealthy they are, but we have entire subcultures built around tattoos. Um, we're living in a generation that's simultaneously obsessed with health and safety and then also indifferent to doing the things that need to be done for health and safety. So one of the safest things you can do is lock up repeat offenders, and in certain sectors of the country, let the repeat offenders out if they're of a certain color. We seem to be bent on our destruction even as we become much more aware of what health requires. It's a very sick time we're living in. And then the exhortation for the church is this needs to be one of the ways that we're countercultural. If you have any theology of stewardship, um, the Lord has given you a body that bears his image in some capacity. He has entrusted you with that body to love and tenderly care for, to train in fitness, to fill with good food and fast when it's time. And we're refusing to do any of that. And when we get together, are we eating healthy food? Are we encouraging one another to lead healthy lives? Are we admonishing one another whenever here's the thing that gets real touchy. When people are raising their kids on TV screens, are they going to get any admonishment from people in the church of God saying, hey, your children need stimulation. They need to know you, you know? How can we help you be a better, more present parent? People get very touchy about parenting. I say that as a touchy parent. Um, yeah, this is really essential. You're talking about childhood brain development. Um, it doesn't get much more personal than that. But if we're not willing to say anything about it, do we really love one another? So that's why I'm covering this and topics like this with you. I don't have to risk you hitting me because we're talking through a screen. But I love you in some capacity. And I think you need to know, for the sake of your kids and your grandkids, um, we can't continue to tax ourselves and one another to this degree, watching one another decline in cognitive capacity and spiritual health, and expect for things to continue to go well. Um, if we're not stewarding our brains well, then we're not going to be able to understand good doctrine. We're not going to be able to expect people to have good social skills and emotional skills as they come into church. We're going to continue to see churches fall apart because people quite literally don't have the mental bandwidth for it. So, if you have any interest in a good society where we take good care of our children, this is just one of those things that you not only need to know about, but you need to make sure other people need to know about. That screens seem to have a deleterious impact on mental health, and so the loving thing to do is to urge people who are watching TV too much to stop it. Have I ever shown you all the "Stop It" skit? Look that up. Look up what was his name? We're not going to watch it today, but it's a good. There's some things you just got to stop. I'll be done talking about that and say howdy to my brother John Casey. I saw that you sent me a message on Facebook. I haven't read it yet, but I appreciate it and I will check it out soon. Brother Ed, man, I haven't reached out to you. I wanna chat. Let's chat soon. Open till May 1st. That is excellent news, Pat. Yeah, I don't know what's to be done about that. I'll see if I can't get in the settings, but thank you for letting me know. Dreama says there's a House Bill 4515 in West Virginia. Oh, I saw this. It was introduced in January that, if passed, will allow churches to keep the property when disaffiliating from conferences like the UMC. So I've gotten a couple links about that. I haven't gotten to really dig into the language yet. I'm very much looking forward to doing that. Yeah, we should be in prayer. Let's go ahead and pray. Lord, I remember looking at West Virginia during disaffiliation times under Sandra Steiner Ball, and at the time she seemed to be very fair, and according to some people she was. But Lord, there are many churches in West Virginia that are trapped, that were not treated fairly by the conference, and it looks as though the state can give relief here. And Lord, although I'm wary of any dependence upon the state, I also think it's foolish to refuse help if it can be afforded. So, Lord, if it be your will that these strictures on your church can be lifted in West Virginia, then, Lord, make it so. Make it be something that advances liberty for true believers and doesn't, increase the squeeze from the state. Lord, provide for your churches that are caught up in covenant relationships that they no longer want to be a part of because of worldly coercion. Lord, grant them liberty, grant them strength for needed for this day and for the days ahead. And Lord, if it be your will, may we know unity on the other side of getting free from the United Methodist Church. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, things are doing okay. I'm stressed, but I'm also blessed. I'm not too blessed to be stressed. I'm stressed, but I love what I do. I don't want to do anything else, and I'm very glad to be here. Dreamus says the House bill is for all churches, not just the UMC. Yeah, yeah. Dreama. As I talked about this, I didn't think anybody would really argue. I think a lot of people. I think the best, what we often find is, well, that's how I grew up, and I turned out okay. And I think that is often the most self-unaware thing you can say. If it's, I grew up, eating lead paint off the walls, and I turned out okay. Maybe you did and you broke the odds, or maybe you're not as okay as you think you are. But this seems pretty conclusive. So if your way of going through life is, I did it and it seems to be fine. What's the difference between that and everybody doing what's right in their own eyes? And if you don't know that phrase, read Judges and see how it works out. Yeah, I'm in Mississippi now. I'm in they call Yazoo City the gateway to the Delta. So the Delta is low-lying flat land where the Mississippi River floods sometimes, or at least used to. I don't know how much it floods anymore, but it's very fertile land for planting, very like traditional South. Like as you think of the American South, this is it. This is it. Now, the world is still breaking in and impacting the culture here, but it's very much the South. Hey, David, good to see you, brother. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I've had a number of plain-spoken friends in Mississippi reach out and say, "Welcome, welcome." Could radiation and/or refresh rates and be a factor? Maybe. I wonder. Surely people are writing about this. But then the temptation, as you figure it out, there is virtue in knowing these things, but I think there's always a temptation to say, maybe we can do this thing, but we can do it right. We're doing it wrong, but maybe we can do it right. And sometimes there's just a way of life that is innately not good. So I'm not going to say, heck, I'm talking to you on a screen right now. I'm not going to say all screens are bad. You should have zero screen time. But what I'm going to say is it should be limited. that it is not good to spend our days looking at screens, even if Alex de Tocqueville, French writer in the 19th century, came to America, and he noted that we were a very social people. Lots of social clubs. People were out and about from sun up to sundown, visiting with neighbors, socializing with one another, building up these strong bonds. Um, you don't see that anymore. You see people going to work, and a lot of people don't even go to work. They work from home, and then they drive home from work. They go in their garage, they close the garage door, and they're in front of a screen. And even when they're sleeping, sometimes a lot of people keep screens on. They don't interact with one another. They don't. A lot of people don't go out to restaurants anymore. They order in. They don't go out to movie theaters anymore. They stream them. Um, they don't go grocery shopping anymore. They either have it delivered home or they pick up their all these places where people interacted together, had to know just basic social cues, had to share in a common cultural fabric. All those things are being destroyed, so even if we find a healthier version of TV, we're still using that to subsidize a way of life that is not good for the human condition. So we need to return. We need to repent. We need to be very intentional about, our social skills are like a muscle that needs to be flexed. I remember when COVID happened and everybody was separated from one another and people lost social skills. Anxiety skyrocketed. There were people I saw on the other end of COVID that were not the same people. Their social muscles, it's like a muscle that needs to get worked out, were atrophied, and they could not interact like normal people anymore. And you'll find people that used to be real social and healthy, but they got isolated and they got weird, so I'm less inclined to find, well, I guess I still want a healthier version of TV because we are going to use it from, but I more than that, I want to have an overt conversation about we need to watch less TV, fewer screens. Yeah, yeah. Jared, I noticed they studied interactive screen time. Presumably, people have argued that active screen time isn't as bad as inactive viewing. So, switching to tablets in schools may prove Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot about tablets in schools now, and we're learning more. But yeah, you're right to focus on that word active screen time. I remember kind of stalling out on that for a second, going, I wonder how they define that. But yeah, they anticipate the notion that, like, okay, well, if it's active, if it's not just sitting there and watching, but there's some kind of interactive component. Video games being another one of them. Maybe that's better, and it's saying nope. Even if it's responsive to your touch, still not good. Uh, Worse brain for you. Thank you, Mike and Marianne. God bless you. Jeff, good morning. Yeah, yeah, we'll have some more good times coming. Far be it from me to say anything positive about New York State or the city, says Pat, but I do applaud the policy of students turning in their phones as they come in and get them back at the end of the day. Yeah, a lot of school systems have been doing that around the country and finding that it has uniformly salutary impacts on children's discipline, social abilities, respectfulness, restability, how rested they are. It's been good. We need to go more in this direction. Yeah, yeah. The further we go towards screens, we're going to be in bad, bad shape. Hey, brother Ben, thank you. Quattro's here. Yes, Quattro, you're late, but I'm glad you're here. We got right. Yeah, there's nothing better than a book in hand. I've actually, as stressed as I've been reading this book by Amity Shlaes on the Great Depression. What was it called? It's in the other room. Anyway, always reading a book, very important. I'm doing a book study at my church. I don't know if any of you'd be interested. Yeah, this is just, I'm going to end with this, and it's okay if we end a few minutes early. J. Cliff Christopher wrote a book 2 decades ago, at this point, decade and a half, called Not Your Parents' Offering Plate. He talked about um, theology and the theology around money in the church and how it is that churches should rightly do church finance. I wrote another book. This is the book that we're doing the study on starting this Thursday, Rich Church, Poor Church. Similar concept to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I never read, but the common theme between the two being there are a number of financial behaviors that make sense to people, either individually or collectively, but are actually not very good. And there are ways in which churches do finance that make sense, and it's the way they've always been done, but they're not really good for the church. And so it's an easy read. It's only 100, more than a little more than 100 pages, uh, big spaced out lines. But man, I did this book study with my previous church and found it really helpful actually for reorienting me and them just to kind of step outside of the way things always have been done, reflect on them biblically, and step back into them. And you know what? The Lord prospered big time. Well, he's prospered, yeah, my ministry, and it's not just about money. Like, money is a means. It's just one of many means of assessing our discipleship. But local churches should be faithful about money. And so, if you're at all interested in that study, I think I will have an online availability for those who want to participate remotely. I can't promise that you'll have any input in the conversation that happens. If enough of you signed up, I might like do a Zoom thing and put you in a room together and use Zoom. People can talk to each other. But I'm already going to be hosting it. I'd like to think it'll be easy enough for me to put up a camera and a microphone and invite you to be a part of it. So let me know if you want to do that. I'll give you my email one more time, plainspokenpod@gmail.com. And that'll be Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. Um, yeah, okay, I just did the email address. Yeah, I think it's a good topic and it's for Lent. So it's only going to go on for, I think there will be 7 Thursdays. Yeah, because the first one will be this Thursday. If you're remote, I won't buy a book for you. You'll have to buy your own book. But even if you don't, I think everybody should know about Horizon Stewardship Ministry. Jake Cliff Christopher and his outfit did a workshop that I was able to participate in early on in ministry, and it made, I mean, it really strengthened me. A lot of pastors and people broadly, but especially pastors, are very anxious about talking about money, not at all confident. A lot of pastors are really bad with money, um, to our shame. And so I think it's important for pastors to be good stewards of their money, to model good, faithful stewardship of their money, and for churches. How can you lead in the household of God when you're not a good steward of the things that God has given you, you know? So, yeah, I think it's good to intentionally spend time as a pastor getting clear on what the Bible says about money, how it is that we're expected to have a relationship with money, what that relationship is supposed to look like, how it is that we preach to the rich, how it is that we preach to the poor, and how it is that we publicly show our faith in God by our relationship with money. These things are all connected, of course. You know, you'll get people to agree to that in theory, but then they'll be like, oh, but you still shouldn't talk about it from the pulpit, or you still shouldn't know X, Y, or Z, or we still should keep this a secret. And I would just challenge you on that. So, anyway, consider joining me on Thursday. It's 8:20. I think it'd be good just to go ahead. You know, this has been my first time for a while. I probably said, I don't know, 20 things that later today I'm going to go, I shouldn't have said that. So, how about let's go ahead and pray, and I'll plan on being back with you tomorrow morning. So, go ahead and put it on your calendar. If there's stuff you want me to talk about, make sure to, yeah, just email it to me. And then I began with an invitation at the front end, but a lot of you weren't here on locals. If I lose any more subscribers, I can't live stream on locals anymore. So if you don't support me on Substack, consider going over to locals, becoming a supporter there. I think it's just $5 a month, and then I'll do my best to give locals some special love that I don't give anywhere else. No commitments, but I'm thinking there can be watch parties and stuff in the future. That would be good for me. So anyway, let's pray and then we'll close out. Lord, we thank you for the honor of being stewards of many resources that you've given us, and And we don't know why it is that some of us are given more and some of us are given less, but we know whew, that you are going to judge those of us with more, with greater strictness. And so, Lord, help us to be faithful with all that we have. Um, but even if we have very little, help us not to excuse ourselves from the high calling of good stewardship. I'm mindful of mm, the story of the talents that your son Jesus told. And even though that's not just about money, it's about money and many other things. You've designated that we should be your image bearers, not just by having these bodies, but by administering your stuff. It's not ours, it's yours. So, Lord, help us to take joy in working in this garden that you've given us. Help us to not just phone it in and zone out and do what everybody else is doing. Help us to be very intentional about our lives, such that we question the norms of our day that are really quite abnormal. We've been talking this morning about the role of screens in our lives and especially our children's lives. And Lord, this ambivalence that we often have, this kind of dispassionate, not caring disposition that we often have, it's just not, it doesn't bring you glory, does it? So, Lord, help us to be fully alive, help our consciences to be pricked in the ways that we're failing the next generation of children. Help us to receive admonishment from the knowledge that science brings, insofar as it acknowledges the truth of your word. We need to live right lives now, Father, and that doesn't happen by just good intention or by um, just going with the flow. That requires very active, very intentional, and conscientious work. And Lord, that's hard because we're tired and we're stretched thin. So, Lord, help us to reorient our lives such that we're not taxed, such that we rightly Sabbath in you, such that we rightly work for you, such that we're not needing an escape from our lives through screens or alcohol or avoidance and luxury. Help us to enjoy the lives that you've given us, bringing order to chaos, bringing peace to the weary, and comfort uh, to the poor. Lord, you've given us wonderful lives to lead. So help us to actually do what there is to be done and joyfully for your name's sake. We ask these things in Jesus' most holy name. Amen. I'm realizing I'm not the same person I was whenever I last did this. I didn't realize how much I'd changed over the last couple of months. I don't imagine I just realized that we change over time, don't we? Uh, and that can be a good thing. God is really faithful. God has been really faithful to me. I ask God's blessing on you, and yeah, we'll see what God has in store for us in the days and weeks ahead. I'll hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.